Welcome to the Improviding Life podcast, where we explore how life can be more livable. This is Lori Crawford, your host, who is currently sitting at a pretty dilapidated park bench and who was sort of planning out my thoughts for this episode while a car was just parked next to me with like the engine on, because it's hot today. But the sound of the car, I was like, is that going to be like too much background noise to record? But also it's way too hot for me to sit in my car. And right as I was finally just going to give in and record it, they left. So yay for honoring patience, and that people can leave at times when it is actually worth, your while. So yay to that. This episode is going to be a little saucy, a little spicy, a little Petty Miss Primey, which is my alter ego, my inner beingness, right, is Petty Miss Prime. And it's really coming from thoughts that I've had the past few weeks and also conversations that I've had with some clients lately. And so I am just excited to share it out and have it no longer just living like rent-free in my brain. So the title of today's episode is Leave Your Inner Child the Fuck Alone. Pause for dramatic effect, right? And so the big recap, the bottom line up front, so to speak, in case you're like, do I want to listen to this one right now, is the idea that putting the pressure on our inner child to heal us just reinforces the issues that made us feel and play small since childhood, right? And so if you've ever literally been on social media, like anywhere, by now you've heard of the idea of inner child work. And I just want to pause first because it, in my experience and some of my clients' experience, it can be really difficult to be hearing that so prevalently, and also be like, how the fuck do I connect with my inner child? Feeling like just so much damage has been done, so much harm has happened in your life that it just feels totally unsafe and inaccessible to be with your inner child, or to even know where to start, right? And so that can often feel like these huge question marks coming up of like, how would I even do that, right? So I want to first just offer a moment to normalize that it can be really hard to feel this connection to your inner child, because it can so often be like co-opted in this idea of, well, how do I do it right? What's the correct way to do it? Do you have like a 5-step printout that I can put on my refrigerator and like check it off as I go? And in that moment, when those questions come up of like, what's the right way to do it? How do I do it? Taking a pause and asking yourself, is this coming from a place of wanting to acknowledge that, some trauma might come up and you might need additional support, which is very different of a situation than what I want to complain about, right? That's actually really great wisdom, and really trust that if you're thinking, you know what, I need more space being held, because there are practitioners like myself who hold space specifically for that. Right? Because, I like to say we all got unhelpful help growing up. The things that people did because they thought it was going to be helpful for us, but it really kind of fucked us up and it wasn't what we actually needed. And so what if we could also get helpful help in undoing all of the bullshit, right? As the train goes by and toot toots. And I just want to acknowledge for any of my sensitive audio folks out there, like auditory processing people like myself, while this is a beautiful place for me to be sitting, it is very loud, and I acknowledge that, but this is the best option that I have accessible. And if I were to hit stop and try to record, I want to be able to upload it as one file, and trying to entrepreneur while being a mom has me asking myself what's the easiest way possible. So now that we went on that ADHD water ride, coming back to that idea where it's like, if your hesitancy with interacting with your inner child is because you aren't sure what's going to come up, totally valid, listen to that. If what's actually coming up is this thought of like, well, how am I going to do it the right way? Is it going to help me be more productive? Is it going to help me get, the new career? Is it going to help me adult better, right? And check off more check boxes. I want to pause right there for a moment, because that can very well be why your inner child isn't showing up, because you're putting so much expectation on it to just be another part of your adulting functioning and dysregulation and misfunctioning, right? And so I want to offer this question, right? So ask yourself, what are you actually underneath all the layers asking of your inner child? What are you asking your inner child to do for you? And can there be room where we're actually starting to wiggle around and actually ask of ourselves, how can our inner parent learn to leave our inner child the fuck alone, right? And what I really mean by that is children just are, right? Children are in the moment, children are themselves, children are able to express their needs in the ways that they have access to, right? And adults do. That's how we've been raised as a society. Children are, adults do. And that's the very dynamic that we're trying to shift. And also, part of that is we need to get out of our own way by creating those safer conditions for our inner child to just be. Right? Our inner child isn't asking our inner parent, like, hey, how do I be an inner child? How do I be a child? How can I just, like, exist and be excited that there's a fucking, like, dandelion over there that, you know, is all fuzzy and ready to be blown to the wind? Like, that's not what it's asking. It's like, hey, can you get the fuck off my back and stop telling me that there's a right way to blow out my dandelion wish, right? Like, can you just actually, like, let me discover that on my own? Because what's actually needed is, like, our inner parent needs to just create that space where there's the conditions to actually exist, right? So it's like, if there was truly a place where we felt at ease or comfortable, what would be possible from that place? And so really, you know, having this conversation on how our inner parent is the gatekeeper to our joy, our ease, our healing, our ability to connect, are able to have access to a more livable life, right? Because so often what, you know, and this isn't to even shame or guilt ourselves, right? It's just to acknowledge and, like, call it what it is. Our efforts to heal are so often still done from this white supremacist, capitalistic, patriarchal lens of properness, of, like, am I doing it the right way for the right, reasons? That way I can get the next right thing in my life to happen. And, you know, when we're getting more curious about disrupting and breaking these larger intergenerational cycles of just passing our shit on from one person to another without, you know, understanding that there's a difference between intention and impact, right? You know, like, if that's what we're really here to disrupt, then that is going to ask of us to have different tools and resources available. And so what do we do from that space, right? Why am I here rambling about leaving your inner child the fuck alone? Well, it's because I'm so excited to be feeling the clarity and, like, how to actually put words to the Shit Shifter Society, which is the monthly membership that I am, like, founding and launching. And it is a place for intergenerational cycle breakers like myself and those that I just adore so much in my life to be able to have a place to commune and be curious and to receive support in navigating this dynamic relationship between inner parent and inner child, really cultivating a self-ship, you know, between your body, spirit, and mind, so that way you're able to navigate your day with more ease, joy, and connection, right? And it's like that feeling of, like, when you wake up and you're like, oh, something has to give, right? I can't have one more fucking thing added to my plate, and really being able to shift to the space of waking up and being like, oh, I have shits to give. Like, what do I want to focus on today? Could I actually, you know, call that one cousin I haven't talked to in a while because I want to hear their laugh because it makes me snort laugh, and, you know, like, I just want that type of joy today, right? There's suddenly room for choices, and there's room for having a sense of self amongst it all, right? Because so often the largest sort of pile of shit that we're passing on generation to generation is the distance between our actual selves and who we're navigating life as, right? So the Shit Shifter Society is for someone who wants to be their full ass self and understandably has had to be that fraction, that splinter of themselves to be able to check off the things off their list, to be safe, to feel like they are welcomed or loved or trusted by those around them, right? And so instead of only having access to that unhelpful help over your life of saying, like, here's the right way to be, here's how to not be yourself, essentially, what would it be like to have a supportive, playful, accessible place to show up and relearn and re-meet and re-friend yourself, your full ass self, right? Meaning that, you know, your quirks are welcome, the you know, quote, shadowy parts of yourself that you haven't been able to let be seen are welcomed. You know, your wobbliness of navigating these changes, all of this is welcome, because what we have been modeled before is the clusterfuck that is leaving ourselves behind, not actually allowing ourselves to have our needs be expressed, and again, for such understandable reasons. And if we're asking of ourselves for something else to be possible, if we want to be caregiving and like parenting and even just being a community member in a different way that is more equitable and humane, and coming from a place of love and connection and really dismantling systems of oppression, what would it be like if that was something that was happening in a place where the only prerequisite, the only requirement is to exist, right? And allowing yourself to be filled in that way. And so I have enrollment open now through June 21st. And what that really just means is I'm going to be following this seasonal enrollment process. So right now what that looks like is, as we're transitioning season, so like we're leading up into summer happening and starting around the 21st, like this will be my open enrollment period. So as each, like going into summer. And so then later in the year, as we're going into fall, I'll have enrollment open for a month again for people to come in. And my idea with this is to, one, provide more of a cohort feeling for the first founding members, so that way it can really be co-created. So everyone who is going to be part of the Shit Shifter Society is going to be co-creating this experience of being able to say, here, this is the largest pile of shit that it feels like I'm navigating in my day-to-day life. Here's the largest pile of shit that I have inherited from these intergenerational cycles. And, here's the shit that I want to be stopping, the sort of, I don't want to just keep ping-ponging it back and forth to other people. And so being able to curate this space really allows there to be, like living to these, the vision and the values that, I'm sort of bringing this into being through, of really being able to be about your humanity being enough and reconnecting to that, and really dreaming about like what would it look like if it was safe for that to be lived through and expressed in my day-to-day life. And so and for anyone who has more of the logistical type questions, I know at a minimum, each month is going to be receiving like a module of a resource, or, not coursework in terms of like heavy homework, right? But it'll be a practice, like a implementable practice for your body, spirit, or mind relationship to really help you name and navigate the shit that's coming up in your life. There'll be a monthly community, live event, right, but like virtual, so it doesn't matter like where you are, but that live community event. And also things like meditations, journal prompts, card readings, really, and I'm leaving it at that sort of, it's not even a bare minimum, at that digestible amount, because this doesn't need to become something that adds to your to-do list, right? It's really like, what's the magical balance between what brings up the right conversations to explore, what's the right combination of resources to be offering back out to fill your cup, and how can there still be room to play and to have the experience of being a full ass self be what comes through, because it's like that's how I'm showing up to the space, to hold the space for everyone. And so for anyone who joins by June 21st and is a founding member, will be locked in at that $33 a month price, regardless of if or when the price changes in the future. So beyond that perk, all of the founders will also receive free access to the course that I've created called Yes and Yesterday, which is the most digestible, like how do I even get started approach to having a body, spirit, mind relationship, of really even seeing like, why do I feel so depleted? Oh wait, I don't even have a cup to fill up. I feel like a raggedy paper plate with a bite out of it. Like really understanding why life is feeling so difficult to life, and giving you a way to navigate that. And then also each person will be receiving a personalized card reading as well that will really help you set intentions for your membership experience, and also be able to put words to sort of what your spirit squad might be wanting you to know about this opportunity. So those are the bits and bobs that are coming through right now. My mouth is dry, which is my cue to wrap it up. And so the link to join will be in the description of this episode. And also you can always reach out on Instagram at improvide.with.lori, and also the email is hello@loricrawford.me if you have any questions. I also intentionally have this being like a month-long enrollment period, so that way there is time for questions for people to, like, we all have different pay periods, like all the logistical things, and also because I would much rather have everyone be able to practice their own decision-making processes from an embodied sense and not feel rushed to make a last-minute decision. So I'm really hoping that you honor your needs, and would love to know if this episode and this idea of leaving your inner child the fuck alone resonates at all. As always, have a razzle-dazzle day, and if that's not accessible, put an F on front and have a frazzle-dazzle day.